morning. It is Saturday morning, March 21st, and we had a busy night. We had lots of solar activity going on yesterday and last night. As you know, I said we'd probably go to a G3, maybe a G4, but definitely a G3. And last night we went G1, G2, G3, G2, G3, strong, almost to a G4 last night, and then back down to G2, G1, and then working his way back up, back and forth. A little silly, but you know, we're getting hit with waves, and I'll show you here in a second what's going on there. Let's get a live update here. See how. There we go. Now, go up to the upper box here. Well, you can see they updated it right up over in this corner here. They're calling for a G3 today, and you can see we've had a G3 last night, and you know, towards this morning. I'm speaking California time, and most of these times here are UTC, which is based out of coming off of London, England, Greenwich. But anyhow, the black line here, that is magnitude of energy coming from the sun and our being released and assembling in our direction. And the red line here is solar wind. And as you can see, the winds are all over the place. Well, wind does that, right? But this is solar wind, not the wind outside, not the wind moving your leaves around. But, of course, luckily the magnitude's been kind of holding pretty good lately. This peak right here was just about 35 minutes ago. So, but it's coming back down. Like I said, this is pretty damn close to live. This is accurate as of I don't know, 5 minutes ago. So there we go. But anyhow, magnitude's been pretty consistent. Winds are up and down. And again, the storm coming in, if the wind's pushing it, it'll get here a little quicker. If the wind drops off, then it slows down and comes at its own rate. So yeah, that's why we had such weird things going on last night when the winds are fluctuating as they do. This is last night. This is all morning. This is earliest on this one is 1818 military time. So and for UDT. But anyways, we're in for some more. We got some more waves coming in. So we have again possible G3 today. Again, if you're into ham radio and upper radio frequencies, FM and stuff might start getting interfered with. Obviously some things dealing with satellites can be interfered with, which can be data, internet, and cell phones and GPS. But that's G3. It starts messing with it a little bit, like static kind of a thing, noise. G4 starts, things start dropping out. But we're, G3, G5, everything's gone. G5's the Carrington event. Look it up. I think the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that energy came down. Our magnetosphere was overwhelmed, and the telegraph lines, because wire was absorbing the magnetic energy, and they caught fire and burned and broke. So all of a sudden, telegraphs all over the United States was out. No one can figure out why, and other things happening. But that was 4 to 5, probably a good 5. But anyhow, we're G3. Maybe a G4, but I'll definitely gonna stick with the G3. I'll stick with the G3. I'm not gonna go as far as the G4 today. Last night I was saying possibility G4, and we got dang close. But anywho, also when you have this kind of energy going on, that's just something you may not be aware of. These storms can knock satellites out of orbit. Because two things happen. Again, we have energy coming in, and different solar winds coming in, which can affect satellites. But primarily what it does, or what brings them down, that helps. But with this level of energy, our atmosphere will expand. And if you've got, here's our high-end graphics, I'm telling you, man. So if this is us, and our atmosphere here, this is a whole ball of wax, and we got all the satellites going around, and we start getting all this solar energy, our atmosphere starts increasing in size, and this little satellite, instead of being above it, is now going through it, and that's resistance, which slows it down more. So it goes further, falls further into the atmosphere, which slows it down more, which then, either burns up in the atmosphere coming in, or if it makes it through, it's probably going to, land in South Pacific. But, it can land anywhere on its path around the Earth, depending on what its orbit was set up. But, some of the smaller ones will, burn up. But still, believe it or not, that can happen. Like Elon Musk's little satellites up there. Some of them are on the little lower side. They can come in and, be gone. But anywho, we're in for some fun today, potentially. But enjoy the day. Weird things happen. Blame it on it. Oh, yes, and also you probably noticed increase in earthquakes all the way around the world, and magnitudes being higher all around the world, and many big ones happening relatively consistently. And it does seem to happen when we have a big hole in the, well, not a hole in the sun, but a hole in, well, you saw in the image I showed you yesterday. I don't have it loaded up, but when you have those big dark areas on the sun, that's when it's like you're looking in a little further than you normally do, and that's where the solar wind is coming out like you wouldn't believe, or can be, depending on the size. But we tend to have a tendency. Earthquakes seem to happen often with that happening when we're in the solar, when we're in the equator of it, the sun, when you look at it, it's about our path. And if that lands around and, starts hitting us, and it's a pretty big size one, we get earthquakes. And I kind of always say it's like, possibly related. Who knows? The more happening just right now, with the storms we're having right now and the earthquakes happening right now, I'm going to push it and say, sure, it does. I mean, it definitely affects earthquakes. And we get more of them during these times, so I'll call it. I'll say it. We also get, of course, weather changes or interesting effects on the weather, and that's always been happening. The sun obviously has a massive effect on the sun, on our weather. So, you start getting busy like this, weird things start happening, weather starts getting affected by it too. So, put on a sweater or get down to tank tops, depending on where you're at and what's happening. But it's big difference in what happens with the sun and how much energy we're getting from it, and our tilt and how close we are and how far we are, and et cetera. Big effect. But anywho, we'll call it. Have ourselves a rest of your wonderful Saturday and a great weekend. And if anything more interesting happens, if something pops up, I'm going to have this on my stream constantly going, so if something happens, I'll get back on and let you guys know. Other than that, Davos.